Hello everyone, this is part 5 of What If Naruto Was in the 7 Ninja Swordsman, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Genjutsu Hozuki was currently busy reading through an extensive report which, if implemented, could completely change Kiri's shinobi forces and the doctrine, maybe even change the way the current war was going. Opposite from him in the office sat Naruto, who too was busy going over the sheer number of applications that had started pouring in. Genin, Chunin, Junin, Anbu, Hunter ninjas, almost the entire shinobi forces wanted to join the 501st. What do you think? Asked Genjutsu curiously. It is strategically unwise to have an entire village's armed forces organized into one legion. Logistically it is impossible as well, but something has changed within our shinobi. Lord Second, previously they were divided by various groups that they served under. Anbu detested hunters, hunters detested everyone, regular ninja hated the special forces, but here they are all willing to fight under one banner. Still, I would advise not to concentrate too much power like this, explained Naruto honestly. Which is why I see merit in your proposal. If I sanction this, then Kiri's shinobi forces will be divided into 4 legions. The 501st led by you, the 212th led by Mangetsu Hozuki, the 47th legion led by the Anbu commander and the 99th legion led by Yagura Karatachi. Each legion comprised of nearly 5,000 shinobi. Except for the 501st, which will only have you, the other legions will have at least 2 ninja swordsmen in their ranks. You have similarly distributed the skilled shinobi with the regular ones across legions to maintain balance. The only exceptions being the 501st, which shall have the 6 tails Jinchuriki in its ranks, while the commander of the 99th legion Yagura is the 3 tails Jinchuriki, stated Genjutsu seriously. Naruto nodded as he got up and stepped before the ninja world map placed in the office. Genjutsu narrowed his eyes when he saw Naruto placing the 99th legion to invade the land of lightning from the extreme north. The 212th would do the same from the coastal areas in the east. The 501st would link up with Konoha and Azu forces if an alliance was negotiated. Together they would push deeper into enemy territory through the south. The 47th Legion would be stationed in the village for its protection should the remaining 3 legions perish, but could also be used to send aid to trapped legions. Genjutsu also read through the new sets of armor and weapons for each legion. Wouldn't this reduce your own power? I made you general and you have the skills to lead men in battle. Why? Asked Genjutsu seriously, and was surprised when Naruto gave him a faint smile. Roots protect the trees. Genjutsu smiled fully as those words conveyed all that he needed to know. It truly showed the real feelings inside the heart of this shinobi. Your parents will be proud of you, praised Genjutsu honestly. I don't know about that, Lord Second. I couldn't even protect them, nor could I protect many of my friends and fellow comrades. For a nation to win any battle, the people must be united. I am expendable, my desire is to be the bridge that erases the boundaries between our people. There are greater heroes than me in this village, shinobi who are the future. I shall protect them and support them in carving a new and better future for Kirigakure, explained Naruto, as he placed another scroll before Genjutsu's desk. The Mizukage raised an eyebrow but did pick up the scroll. His eyes widened when he read the contents of another mission proposed by the officer before him. An S-rank mission. One which Naruto wanted to do alone. Naruto, you are probably the best officer I have seen in a long time. More than that, you are a good person, but you have a fatal flaw, said Genjutsu seriously, as he placed the scroll back on the table. Lord Second, asked the confused general, your past haunts your present. You once believed in your comrades and relied upon them, only to watch them when facing dangerous odds. You hold yourself responsible for each of those deaths and the guilt haunts you every day. Your past missions and even the one in Osaka is a proof of you trying to shoulder all the burden on your own. You are not all powerful and have your limits, admonished the Mizukage, making the blonde-haired man lower his eyes. No matter how strong you are, don't try to shoulder everything or the burden will break you. More importantly, you are not alone. Naruto completely lowered his gaze for he had no answer to that observation. No matter how much he wanted to deny it, they were true. There was a time when he had believed in his comrades only to watch them one after another. That belief was shattered when he watched his brother believe in us. He remembered those fateful words said to him by his comrades from the program, one of them being his little brother on that fateful night. He had offered to stay behind and hold off the enemy. He would have but his would have allowed his comrades to escape, including his little brother. However, they didn't leave him behind and chose to stay and fight. Now, they were all and he was still alive. He still remembered the devastated families of his comrades. Most of them had been so young that the deaths enraged the entire village. He still remembered those hateful glares, those accusing stares. The villagers detested him for surviving and returning back home while every shinobi under his command perished. He remembered the isolation and to the point that he nearly used his own sword to end his shame. The Azukiage, however, had other plans and stopped him. Naruto. He looked up when the Azukiage called him, only to realize quite a few long moments had passed while he remembered his past. I am approving this mission. However, the 7 ninja swordsmen will complete this task as a group. That is an order, declared Genjutsu calmly, as he placed his stamp over the scroll. Very well, Lord Second, accepted Naruto with a resigned nod. Do you have the exact location coordinates for this strike? I understand that this strike may very well cripple the Land of Lightning, maybe even end this war, questioned Genjutsu, and sighed when Naruto shook his head. Not exactly, Lord Second. My comrades in the Anbu informed me that the enemy is operating in this area, but the exact location is something that the 7 of us would have to find out on our own, explained Naruto as he pointed towards quite a large operation area on the map across the Land of Lightning's borders. That's quite a large area that you need to scout. Would you like to take more forces with you? Asked the cage. Negative. The moment we encounter this target, the most dangerous warriors from the Land of Lightning will try to stop us. They will already have a small army protecting him. A large force will get spotted easily, but a small squad can sneak in and do the task, after which it can evacuate quickly. A single shinobi would be even more easier to infiltrate, less costly to lose if discovered than an entire squad, hinted Naruto cheekily, earning a tiny smirk from the cage. Stubborn brat. My order still stands. Either all 7 of you shall go on this mission or it stands cancelled. Understood, demanded the Azukiage, making Naruto sigh, but the boy did nod his consent. Yes, Lord Second. The objective of this mission is to make the enemy disappear without any traces pointing back to us. It would crack the Land of Lightning elites into petty factions as everybody fights to defend their power. Without backing from the elites, even the Kumogakure's military forces will be severely crippled. At that point, we will push in and crush them from the north, south and east, explained Naruto seriously. He was surprised when the Azukiage stared at him for several long seconds. I'm glad you are not our enemy. Naruto got up from his chair to offer a salute and received a nod from the Azukiage. Wordlessly, he turned around and marched out of the office with his fist clenched shut to the point he drew B. Tobarama sat before one of his peers in the man's office, only this time they were devoid of any of their subordinates lingering around. It was one cage facing another. Hokage, the war is not going well for your village. We just got news that the 11th Battalion suffered great causalities against the Wagakure and Sungakure forces. Kagami Uchiha in battle, rendering the Uchiha clan leaderless once more, explained Genjutsu gravely. If the Hokage was troubled by this latest development, Tobarama did not show it as he remained stoic. What do you need from me? Asked Tobarama directly. Genjutsu nodded as he forwarded a well-drafted trade agreement sent to him from the daimyo of his nation. Tobarama read through the agreement before respectfully placing it back on the table. Rejected. Genjutsu's eyebrows twitched at the audacity of this man. It would seem the Senju didn't understand or was foolish enough to ignore the gravity of the situation that his village was in. Do you know what you are doing, Hokage? Asked Genjutsu with some irritation seeping into his voice. I do. My people may suffer, but they will before they become anyone else's pawns. The will of fire is strong and has been passed down to the next generation. Shisui Uchiha shall lead the Uchiha clan, declared Tobarama confidently. A boy of 14. For someone well known to have grudge against the Uchiha, you seem to have quite a lot of fate in him, commented the Azukiage with a frown. Shisui may be young, but he carries my brother Hashirama's will. The Uchiha may have differences with the village, but they will defend their home. As long as a single loyal Uchiha remains, that front won't collapse. You can stop trying to put fear in me, for I will never lose faith in my people, rebuked Tobirama sternly. Genjutsu didn't miss the fact that Tobirama had the same faith in his men just as Naruto had in his own. It was an admirable trait if nothing else. Even if you threaten my life, my people will not bow. I have left behind a clear chain of command. Even if the current Hokage is swayed by sentiment and tries to endanger the future of the village for the sake of one man, he will be sacked by the elite Junin officers and elders of the village. A few may try to risk their lives and may by following on their sentiment to rescue me, but nothing else will happen, said Tobirama coldly. Genjutsu had known this man was stone cold, but now that he saw what Tobirama was capable of, those doubts were now a reality. If the measures were existing, then Hiruzen Sarutobi won't make any overt move to rescue Tobirama. It would earn him the ire of the Senju clan, but the village would be safeguarded. Such a cold decision could only be put in place by a man like Tobirama. Threats don't make the land of fire tremble. If you truly desire to profit, form an alliance with us. That is the only way the future of our nations will be secure, not just in peace but in war as well, proposed Tobirama. Are you proposing a military alliance? Questioned Genjutsu curiously. For a start, the land of fire remembers its friends, and we need a strong one like Kiri today. If you form an alliance with us and if we win this war, we promise not just to divide the spoils equally but establish trade, political and cultural relations with the land of water which don't exist till this day, offered Tobirama. You are asking me to form an alliance without offering anything first? Asked Genjutsu disappointedly. You mistake me, Mizukage. I am not offering you an alliance, clarified Tobirama. Then what are you offering? Questioned Genjutsu, now truly curious about this man's intention. Friendship. For once, the Mizukage didn't have an answer to an offer. He didn't know whether Tobirama was naive or playing a different game, but before Genjutsu could question the Hokage further, the door to his office received several urgent knocks. Irritated, the Mizukage gave permission, allowing a lone Anbu to step in. Lord Second, urgent news. By the time Genjutsu and Tobirama reached the training grounds, almost half of the village had gathered over the place. The two Kages soon found the reason behind the commotion when they saw the 7 ninja swordsmen fully armed, with each of them facing each other. What is going on? Asked Genjutsu loudly. Just a friendly battle, Lord Second, replied Zabuza with a feral grin, making Kisame laugh. He's right. This is just for fun, agreed Kisame, earning similar smiles from Amayuri and Jinpachi. Your ideas of fun usually tend to go out of hand, Kisame, warned the Kage, making quite a few people around him laugh, even making Tobirama smirk. No serious harm shall be done, Lord Second. We'll make sure of that, promised Haku calmly. We all want to test our own powers and thought it would be best to see how strong we are. What better way than to have a friendly spar with shinobi of our rank? Questioned Mangetsu, earning a nod from his father. What do you say, Naruto? Tobirama keenly observed the young Namikaze had been keeping eerily quiet even as everyone voiced their opinions around him. He still remembered the fact that Tsukumo Hatake, who was one of the operatives undercover in this village from Konoha, had managed to slip in the medical report regarding this shinobi. The fact that Naruto was directly related to the Senju and Namikaze clans had only alarmed Tobirama further, for it only solidified his suspicions about this boy being his own child. Tobirama had also not missed the fact that Naruto had Uchiha B in his veins. He remembered hearing from Inoue Namikaze that one of her paternal ancestors had been a rebel Uchiha female who had defected from her clan as she fell in love with a Namikaze. Although the Uchiha clan K the traitorous member for her actions, she and her Namikaze husband left behind a child who would one day become Inoue's father and whose daughter would someday give birth to the blonde man standing before Tobirama today. The Uchiha genes, while existing, were not strong in Naruto's body due to gap between generations, but it didn't change the fact that he was related to the two founding clans of Konoha directly, which if discovered would lead to a swift E in Kirigaka or worse. It was why he had ordered Tsukumo to never let this secret become public, for Kirigaka would hunt down Naruto like a rabid animal and make him suffer for the treachery. He paid attention as his possible son gave a reassuring nod to the Mizukage before turning towards his peers as his eyes turned red. Try to make this fun. Amayuri Ringo only had a second to blink as Naruto appeared right in front of her in a dark flash. She screamed in agonizing pain as his fist connected against her C. Crack. Tobirama was not the only one left speechless when the red-headed female Kanoiki was sent crashing several hundred feet away before she crashed against a nearby hill and went still. A few medical ninja rushed to her side before looking at the Mizukage and shaking their head. One blow. He took her out with just one. Genjutsu felt that sensation when Naruto looked back at the remaining swordsmen who were now all united against him. In response, the Namikaze warrior unleashed his own K intent, making several weaker ninjas and civilians drop unconscious. Mangetsu flinched when the overwhelming pressure unleashed by that K intent fell upon him and his comrades. Everyone, he's probably an S-rank shinobi, commented Haku with gritted teeth, as she tried to fight against the overwhelming power. Even if he's a cage-level ninja, he can't survive if all of us attack him together, advised Mangetsu. Then what are waiting for? Demanded Zabuza, as the remaining 5 swordsmen unleashed their weapons much to the excitement of the crowd. Tobirama narrowed his gaze when all 5 surviving swordsmen charged towards Naruto from various directions. Instead of quick counter moves, the Kiri general stayed rooted to his spot, but his eyes watched each of his approaching opponents keenly before he clasped his hands together. Ash release, hidden explosion. Mangetsu felt the change in the air and instantly signaled the others as all 5 of them performed the same set of hand seals in unison and at a rapid pace. Water style, water barrier. All 5 swordsmen release large chunks of water from their mouths around them, creating a water barrier, and just in time as the very air around them was ignited, engulfing a small portion of the area on fire. The water barriers bore the brunt of the blast and protected their casters, but it also restricted their movement temporarily, a weakness which Naruto took advantage of as he appeared right behind Jinpachi's barrier and placed a tag on the recovering barrier. Sealing style, the Greater Void. Jinpachi gasped when the limited air inside his water barrier was instantly sucked away into the seal. He made desperate attempts to escape his new prison, but the same sealing tag kept him in place. He looked into those cold red eyes for a few long seconds before his vision started to blur. As the body hit the ground, Naruto turned back and saw the remaining 4 swordsmen staring at him with contempt and hidden fear in their eyes. "You still want to dance?" asked Naruto coldly, as he placed his hand upon the hilt of his sword. Tobirama was perhaps the only one in the crowd who was not shocked by the way the battle was turning out. He was not one to dismiss any opponent, but the people of Kiri and its shinobi had no idea about who they were dealing with. The Hokage could still remember the mangled corpse of the Two Tails all those years ago. This boy had been strong enough to Biju when he was just 14. Now he was a man grown, a veteran of 2 wars. Only Kami knew how much power he had amassed in his mission to destroy the Land of Lightning for what they did to his family. Zabuza and Kisame both quickly performed a similar set of hand seals, unleashing their village's famous jutsu. Hidden Mist Jutsu. The mist started to spread quickly across the entire area and started to hamper the vision of many, including Naruto's. Undeterred, he grabbed the Tanto version of his sword and threw it in the eastern direction. Haku felt the weapon approaching through the whistling wind and dodged it with ease, but her eyes widened in horror when Naruto appeared right beside her as he grabbed the very Tanto she dodged a moment ago. Her painful scream echoed across the area a moment later. Mangetsu hastily dispersed the mist and was angered when he saw his oldest friend had already collapsed with a non-lethal wound across her back. Naruto had made sure to not inflict permanent damage, but had not shown any mercy either by also delivering a swift blow to his opponent's head, knocking her out. Kisame, Zabuza. The remaining 3 swordsmen had in their eyes as they quickly performed a set of hand seals as Naruto mirrored their every sign perfectly and with equal speed. Water style, water wall. Water style, water wall. 2 monstrous waves of raging water were unleashed by the fighters, which clashed against each other with a resounding roar. Naruto had to instantly use his sword and Tanto together to block twin strikes from Zabuza and Kisame, who appeared beside him at alarming speed. His eyes narrowed when he saw Mangetsu in the air with his weapon aimed at him. "Got you, now." With both his hands and weapons engaged, he was left completely open to Mangetsu's attack, but the swordsman's triumph didn't arrive as another 9 replicas of Naruto emerged from the water that had pulled up from the previous attack. The clones attacked each swordsman in a 3-man team, which forced them to release Naruto from the deadlock in order to save themselves from getting hit. Zabuza and Kisame were easily able to dispatch their opponents with a single swing of their blades, but their eyes widened in surprise when the real Naruto disappeared from their side in a flash. Mangetsu had known something was wrong the moment the three clones were so easily destroyed by a single swing of his sword. He got his doubts answered when Naruto appeared behind him and forced him to defend himself. An unearthly scream was unleashed as Muramasa clashed against Kabutawari. Naruto saw Mangetsu swing his blade horizontally at him and ducked but was soon forced to jump away when Zabuza and Kisame again appeared beside Mangetsu's side. Genjutsu didn't miss those cold red eyes glaring at the remaining three swordsmen for the defiance. In them, he saw anger so deep that it unnerved him a bit. His eyes widened when he felt the enormous build-up of chakra. He looked at Tobirama and was relieved to see the Hokage shared his feelings. You don't want to dance anymore, Mangetsu, warned Naruto, his voice sending chills down many people's hearts. Mangetsu had never seen a gaze as intense as the one currently burning in those red eyes. The anger and hate burning inside Naruto's heart, he could feel it growing stronger with each passing moment ready to lash out. He saw Zabuza and Kisame were also not unaffected by the power of their opponent but both were either brave or stupid enough to still hold the ground. When none of the three backed down, Naruto's gaze narrowed in contempt as he clasped his hands together once more. Then disappear. Tobirama and Genjutsu's eyes widened in horror when they felt all the chakra that been infused into the very air itself. Fire and wind. This is bad, thought Tobirama worriedly, as he exchanged a nod with his counterpart Kage. They both rushed in but it was too late. Ash release, particle annihilation. Kirigakure was engulfed in a bright flash as powerful as the scorching sun rendering most people blind. The few strong enough to still see witnessed an explosion identical to a mini Bijudama spreading across the entire sky. It consumed the very air itself and mercilessly set it on fire. Tobirama didn't miss the fact that the explosion was not stopping but only growing more and more larger. Naruto had set the very atmosphere on fire. Is this his version of Amaterasu? I can still feel that heat even from this distance, thought Tobirama, his respect and wariness for this shinobi increasing even more than before. Thankfully, Naruto had staged that attack several kilometers high in the sky and completely away from the village and its citizens. He had no intentions of harming anyone but this action delivered his intentions very clear to the people of Kirigakure. Naruto panted slightly as he unclasped his hands bringing an end to blinding explosion much to the relief of the people around him. His cold red eyes landed upon his last three opponents who had all gone extremely pale. Do you still want to dance? Mangetsu's hands were shaking as he tried his best to maintain his grip over his sword. He saw his comrades were not doing much better after seeing what had just happened. He could have chaos all at any moment. Was he toying with us this entire time? Thought Mangetsu bitterly. For the first time in his life, he felt outclassed completely. Stand down, he ordered in a firm and commanding tone. Neither Zabuza or Kisame had the will left to protest as they lowered their weapons just as Mangetsu did the same. From the corner of his eyes, he saw the medical ninja had restored their remaining group members and they too had seen a glimpse of Naruto's frightening power. They were all relieved when Naruto's red eyes transformed back into his natural blue ones and he too placed his sword on his back. Wordlessly, he turned around and walked away leaving behind a stunned crowd. Next day, Tobirama was not surprised when Naruto showed up at his door fully armed at midnight. Previously the job of keeping an eye over him had been assigned to the Anbu but it would seem the Mizukage had need of those resources, so instead he sent one man powerful enough to keep Tobirama in check should he try something unsavory. The negotiations between both Kage were still going on and would take another week before Tobirama imagined Genjutsu would allow formal negotiations to begin with Konoha. He calmly stepped beside Naruto who remained silent as both of them simply observed the small lake in front of them. You have become a very powerful shinobi, praised Tobirama honestly. Tobirama felt saddened when he saw Naruto remain silent and just observe the peaceful water in front of them. If the reports were true and if this boy was truly his son, then Tobirama had failed him. He was no stranger to war and misery, having been born in the Clan Wars era had made him go through enough of that. He had lost family, loved ones, friends and comrades but never once had he been truly alone. Even when Hashirama-s, he had Mito and his nieces and nephews. He had the Senju clan supporting him and the entire village as well. This boy on the other hand lost everyone at a very young age. Revenge kept him going for the past 10 years but even that was not enough to fill the hole in his heart. His actions were contradictory in nature. A part of his heart wanted to bond with the people of Kirigakure to reclaim what he lost. Even if never said it, he wanted friends, comrades, most of all he wanted a family. At the same time, he was a spy. It was why he had tried his best yesterday to push away the people of Kirigakure by trying to make them afraid of his power. He probably didn't have anyone left in a zoo who cared for him or would welcome him if he ever returned. Maybe they had forgotten he even existed. On the other hand, someday Kirigakure would discover his truth. At that point, he would belong nowhere as a zoo would wash their hands off him, so would Konoha. He was truly alone. Do whatever it takes to return back to your home, Nadime. You have family waiting for you, suggested Naruto. I will. Why did you go that far during that battle? Questioned Tobirama seriously. I am about to take those men into a meat grinder of the worst kind. I wanted them to know that I was strong enough to handle anything that came our way, confessed Naruto, making Tobirama narrow his gaze. What is this mission? Asked Tobirama hesitantly. Naruto looked at him for a long moment, judging whether it was right to reveal it or not. In the end, he sighed and looked at the dark sky as he confirmed Tobirama's worst fears. I am going to be the land of lightning's main royal family. Tobirama paled as he heard that, if fighting Kumogakure wasn't serious enough. This boy was talking about the most highly protected man and his entire family in the land of lightning. For that to happen, the 7 ninja swordsmen would have to go deep behind enemy lines and fight against one of the most fiercest warriors in the entire world. Even if they succeeded in their mission, the land of lightning would ensure they were all brutally for the daimyo. It's AS mission, realized Tobirama out loud, earning a nod from the boy beside him. That's my specialty, if you remember, retorted Naruto with a faint smirk. Tobirama clenched his fists. On one hand he could see what effects this would have on the enemy if the mission was accomplished. It could possibly become the catalyst for bringing an end to this war. As a cage he would wholeheartedly back this move. But as this child's possible father, it's dangerous, cautioned Tobirama, hoping the boy would see reason and value his life for once. I have nothing left to lose, countered Naruto frankly. Tobirama saw the same ruthlessness in those eyes as the one which existed in his own heart. If only he could talk to Naruto about what he had learned from Tsukumo without losing what little trust they had between each other. How he wished Hashirama was here, for his elder brother would know how to break what they had discovered to this boy without making him an enemy. I have a request, said Naruto boldly. I'm listening, nodded Tobirama. Now he was truly curious as Naruto had never asked him for anything before. Should I perish, you will pull Ino Yamanaka off her assignment in Kirigakure and take her back to her home, demanded Naruto sternly, earning a cold glance from the Hokage. She's a shinobi. Her presence here ensures that her home remains safe, refuted Tobirama, and flinched when Naruto's eyes turned red. I don't care. She's my friend and I won't let her be used and thrown aside. If anything happens to her, then I will hold Konoha personally responsible. You don't want to be my enemy, Nadime, warned Naruto coldly. Is that a threat? Asked Tobirama sternly, as some of his own chakra flared. That's a promise. The tension between them increased more and more as both refused to blink and stared into each other's eyes. I don't take threats to Konoha lightly, Naruto, warned Tobirama, returning in his cold eyes. Keep my last remaining friend safe or else be prepared to relearn why the Namikaze clan was feared. Tobirama remained silent as Naruto walked away after delivering that threat. If it was anyone else, Tobirama would have a plan to deal with them if they ever threatened the village. But when it came to his own possible child, he had no answer at the moment. The Uchiha's curse of evil lingers in his heart, elder brother. What should I do? Thought Tobirama worriedly. The more he learned about Naruto, the more he reminded Tobirama of a younger Madara. It was as if fate was playing a cruel joke on him. He who had despised the Uchiha for a long time now had his only child having the clan's be running through his veins. He didn't know how to break this secret to Naruto, much less pull him off this mission to ensure he remains safe. Tobirama sighed. Now I know why I never married in the first place, elder brother. Naruto looked at the assembled group of men and women before him with a keen focus upon gauging each of their reactions. Having just explained the details of their upcoming mission and the plan of action, he wanted to understand if they were mentally and physically prepared for the same. It was but natural for them to have questions, and they started pouring in just as he had expected. What kind of strength will the enemy have? Questioned Amayuri straightforwardly. Unknown. Considering the value of the target, expect a regiment or less stationed for his protection. Many will be shinobi. I will admit, this will not be easy, clarified Naruto without hesitation. Security will be tighter than ever considering our recent destruction of Osaka. The enemy will expect an attack, so the element of surprise is already lost. Moreover, you want us to stage this assassination in such a way that fingers are pointed at the land of lightning's elite noble families rather than Kirigakure. That would imply we never get detected, suggested Jinpachi. Naruto just gave a nod, earning grim looks from his fellow swordsmen. How do we plan to infiltrate this massive operation area? There is no sea nearby and it is completely surrounded by mountains. Getting in through land will be next to impossible without detection. They will have barriers in place to sense the enemy that manages to evade patrols and checkpoints, warned Mangetsu. Naruto was satisfied to see that the future commander of the 212th Legion had a keen gaze for details. Most of all, he never underestimated the enemy or overestimated his own powers. Traits of a fine shinobi. The land of lightning is not as proficient in sealing techniques as Konoha or Izu. Our Anbu reports suggest that the maximum area covered by their barrier is within this range, informed Naruto, as he highlighted quite a large area across the map. Then how do we get in? You are pretty good at fuinjutsu, can you make a hole in this wall? Asked Kisame with a grin. Not enough time without the risk of detection. Barrier teams usually change their shifts on a 12-hour basis. There is one way we can get in when such a change is happening. The barrier's weakest point is in this area. Insertion from this point should allow us to sneak in undetected, explained Naruto as he marked a clear drop on the map. A smirk came upon his hidden face when he saw everyone else blanch. Aerial jump. You do remember none of us know how to fly unlike the Tsuchikage and his student, mocked Zabuza with a scowl. Naruto-san, we may be strong but a jump from 25,000 feet? Asked Haku in a trembling voice. The blonde officer had to fight hard to hide his disappointment. These warriors were considered the best in Kiri. He found their lack of faith in their own powers disturbing. Maybe it had to do with the fact that in their village's history such a mission had never been attempted. While he had already led a similar mission deep behind enemy lines some years ago. Although he hoped the outcome didn't turn out to be the same as the last time, at least for the sake of these swordsmen. I will make sure each of you lands safely after this jump. That's a promise. He was not surprised when his declaration was met with silence until Mangetsu looked at him with a knowing gaze. You have done something like this before, haven't you? Naruto fought back a flinch at that sharp observation. While most people couldn't know about his history in the Anbu Black Ops of Kiri, this boy being the Mizukage's son could access his mission records if he called in a favor. He had conducted such a mission in the past as an Izu shinobi. Denying that he had never done this before would crush what little trust these people may have in his abilities. However, accepting the same would only invite more questions and probing. We'll just have to believe in you, I guess. Everyone, I will not lie and say this is going to be easy. It's a mission but one which would determine the future of our village and people. The Mizukage entrusted us with this future, we cannot fail, declared Mangetsu in a firm voice. The blonde Namikaze couldn't help but feel that perhaps Mangetsu had purposefully not pushed him and diverted the group's attention. Why did he do it was the real question. Naruto narrowed his eyes when he saw the change those words had on the others. Even if they didn't say anything, their postures became a little more firm and confident. Do you really think we can do this? Asked Haku hesitantly, with the same question present in the eyes of most of the others as well. Mangetsu had his own doubts, but there was something about Naruto that made him want to believe in his plan and his abilities. It was probably the way in which he carried himself which clearly showed that he knew what he was doing. The fact that he had already shown that he cared deeply about the lives of his men was enough to make him believe in this man once more. If it's any consolation, I had requested to be sent alone but the Mizukage believed the seven us were needed to work together, said Naruto apologetically, much to everyone's surprise. Why would you ask for something so asked Haku worriedly. To protect one's home from the shadows selflessly is what being a shinobi is to me. I wanted to do this on my own in order to avoid other lives being put in jeopardy. But, said Naruto hesitantly, a part of his heart unable to help but feel guilty for getting him involved in this risky operation. Naruto, believe in us. His eyes widened when he heard Mangetsu say those words, and the same feeling were present in the eyes of the others as well. A look of grim determination. He had seen that look before. For just a tiny moment, he saw the shadows of his friends sitting before him, just like these swordsmen were sitting before him now. Believe in us. Nagato had been the one to say those words all those years ago, and the same feeling had been present in the eyes of all his friends from the program. He had made a choice back then. A choice that got everyone killed. Mangetsu had seen the fleeting look of guilt that had plagued Naruto when he asked the man to believe in them. However, it was soon overtaken by a stoic gaze as the blonde man suppressed his inner emotions. We leave in 2 days. Get your gear ready. Naruto walked alone in the cemetery of the fallen shinobi of Kirigakure. He didn't stop until he reached the memorial stone and simply stared at it. The names were different here, but he remembered Azu having a similar stone where the names of his fallen comrades and family were mentioned. The name of his little brother. He gingerly touched the stone and felt the conflict in his heart fade away as a sense of calmness washed over him. For the past few days, he had been fighting himself desperately. He had perhaps been fighting this feeling for an entire decade, but now he knew his heart was cracking. There was a time when he closed his eyes, all he could see were the faces of his comrades and family. But now, he could sleep if only a little. He could rest at nights without the threat of nightmares plaguing him, as having Ino there with him gave him some much-needed peace. She was the only friend he had made in a long time, someone who understood him. Someone who accepted him despite his faults and sins. A small blush came upon his cheeks as he realized something which he hadn't before. He liked to be around Ino, he enjoyed her company and her cheerfulness, which was enough to cast away his own grim attitude. He knew that he was not an easy person to be around, but she never gave up on him and even had the guts to bash him if he sulked too much. Even if she didn't realize it, she was already sealing away the hole in his heart little by little. Maybe a part of him loved her. Then there were the shinobi of Kirigakure. The way they looked up to him, believed in him, made him feel like the old days had returned once more. Maybe he could once again be someone people could depend upon, instead of being the scapegoat of all failures of the past. The 7 ninja swordsmen were just like his comrades from the program in some ways. They were strong and smart, all of them were different from each other, but when he fought by their side, he felt a camaraderie he hadn't experienced in years. The way Genjutsu had faith in him reminded him of the way Yahiko had looked at him. In a way, the Mizukichi reminded him of the father he had lost. These bonds were precious to him, even if he was a spy and sworn to defend another village. A part of his heart cared about these people in Kirigakure. And it scared him. Nagato, you all had faith in me and I failed, he whispered, hoping his departed brother's soul could hear him. For a long time, I carried this burden and guilt. It was too heavy, he confessed. His gaze bore into the stone fiercely, hoping that the could truly see his feelings for them as he made a new choice. Father, mother, everyone. I shall always protect Azu until the day and I'll never forget any of you, he promised sincerely, as a lone tear fell from his eyes. He closed his eyes as he made his decision. For once, there was no pain or guilt left in his gaze when he opened his eyes again. But I think I want to move forward with some new comrades. He gasped when he saw the ghosts of his family standing in front of him, but instead of the angry glares from his nightmares, they were smiling. Minato, nodded Yahiko, his father. My son, whispered Inoue, his mother with a kind smile. Nisan, greeted Nagato with a thumbs up and a cheeky smile. In this moment, he truly realized what Ino had been trying to teach him for so long. It was not the that haunted him, but his own guilt that stopped him from moving forward. He looked back at Kirigakure, and despite all he had went through, it brought a warm feeling in his heart. He was home. 3 gentle hands were placed at his back as they nudged him forward even as his family started to disappear, but that gesture alone washed away the last of his pain. He looked back at Kirigakure with a newfound determination and hope that he had forgotten for a long time. I shall believe in him, he decided. He stood tall and firm as he looked back at his family with a newfound determination. Father, mother, Nagato. I will never give up. I'll believe in my new comrades and never let them he promised with a smile. The ghosts vanished, however something within him was filled again. Tobirama had not been able to stop himself from thinking about the upcoming mission that Kirigakure was about to launch. It was not that he cared about the shinobi taking part or the outcome it would have for the mist, but for the fact that his only possible son was leading it. For all his faults, Tobirama could not deny that he found Naruto to be a good leader. Still, the risks that child took. Tobirama-sama, you'll make a hole in the floor with all that pacing, chided Tsukumo gently with a smile. He paused and stared at another one of his prized subordinates who had been assigned to keep an eye on him in his current home. If only the mist knew how many spies they had amidst their ranks, they would probably eat him on the spot. That brought a thin smile to his lips. Tsukumo, do you think Naruto can pull this off? Asked the Hokage honestly. He had needed a second opinion, one that was unbiased, and he could think of no other than the White Fang who was fit for the task, so he had told the man about Naruto's mission. He saw Tsukumo smile at him without hesitation. He will. Tobirama blinked and was unable to hide his surprise at the swift and confident reply. Tsukumo must have gauged his reaction as a darker and grim-faced look appeared on his own face. Do you remember the Battle of Aojika? Asked Tsukumo. It's where you earned the name, White Fang. Your bravery that day saved the lives of our shinobi. Although that victory costed us a lot of men, recited Tobirama, but narrowed his gaze when he saw Tsukumo look away. I did what I could to survive and make others do the same. But there was another shinobi besides me that day who played a major role in that victory. The first great ninja war, Konoha and Azu had sent a force of 2,000 shinobi to stop an invasion from Kumo forces. The enemy had nearly 3 times our numbers. It was essentially AS mission. We were supposed to hold off the enemy force and perish, allowing time for the majority of our forces to be mobilized. The enemy had launched the war so suddenly and blindsided us, explained Tsukumo hesitantly. It was a difficult decision, one which the Azukage had agreed with. Fortunately, we won that day, said Tobirama calmly, without a sign of any guilt or remorse. Tsukumo did not miss the harsh nature of this man. It was a stark difference to his own son's feelings towards his men. Tobirama would say 1,000 shinobi without hesitation or remorse if it meant that would protect Konoha, but Naruto on the other hand would try to save his men even if it meant taking great risks. Tobirama was logical and methodical in each and every decision, whether it be politics or the battlefield. What you didn't know was that Naruto was present in that battle. It was his plan that carried us to victory, confessed Tsukumo. What? I thought Danzo had led our forces properly. I had given him command of the force, said Tobirama sharply, as his gaze narrowed. He did not miss the way in which Tsukumo's gaze hardened as Danzo's name was mentioned. I would be if that brat had led the battle entirely. So would our entire force. He wanted us to confront the enemy in open battle. He was callous and eager for glory. He specifically placed the Uchiha and Uzumaki shinobi in the vanguard and was leading the entire force into a trap where the enemy would surround us, followed by destroying us to the last man, said Tsukumo bitterly. Tobirama grit his teeth as he heard the hidden truth. He knew a man like Tsukumo would not lie about something like this. The fact that he had kept silent about this would suggest he had valid reasons. He allowed the man to continue. The men were so close to a revolt, especially the Uchiha, who thought that this was your way of getting rid of them. The Uzumaki were of the same belief. Danzo's attitude only made matters worse as he questioned the loyalty of the Uchiha to the village and the Uzumaki's commitment to our alliance. The only reason the Uchiha didn't mutiny was because of Kagami and his loyalty to the village. The Uzumaki were kept in check by their leader, a shinobi from the S program, revealed Tsukumo. The second Hokage had to take a seat as these revelations were brought to his notice. It was no wonder the Uchiha became so edgy after the battle. He had always imagined it was their way of thinking, but to think his own student had pushed the Uchiha and Uzumaki to this limit. Nadaime, it is true that Madara betrayed the village, but the Uchiha didn't. They stayed loyal and Madara paid for his treachery with death. You have needlessly ostracized the Uchiha by creating the police force. If not for this war, your plan would have restricted the Uchiha to stay in the village and take less and less part in missions. Your students have inherited your will and your fears. Someday it may lead our village to great darkness, warned Tsukumo. Tobirama clenched his fists to the point that he drew B. Fortunately for us, Naruto had been present and took command when Danzo was injured. He led the men to victory through his tactical decisions with minimal losses. Even though we couldn't destroy the enemy completely, we were able to stop their invasion and inflict heavy casualties, confessed Tsukumo. Why did you keep this secret from me? Asked Tobirama coldly. It was Naruto's wish. Tobirama was again stunned by this revelation but allowed the man to continue. Naruto had seen the discord among our force. Danzo was commanding from the rear instead of leading the men. The enemy's aerial bomber squadron found the command location and hit them. I was out in the front lines where the enemy was decimating us when I got injured. The medical ninja took me back to the command center where I found not Danzo but an Uzumaki shinobi directing the troops in secret. He did not let the troops know that command was hit and most of the officers were S. Instead he made them retreat from the open terrain to the forest of Aojika. His actions saved our force from total M. He then used the haunted forest to lure the enemy into his trap. Before the battle even began he had surveyed the entire terrain including the forest. He had this plan ready and used the caves across the forest to launch kamikaze attacks one after another. He isolated the large enemy force into splinter groups and took them out one by one within a week using the haunted forest as his shield. During the entire time, he kept up the impression that Danzo and the leadership were still in command and had not abandoned the men which kept them going. Finally, the enemy couldn't afford more casualties and retreated. Tsukumo's confession had opened up a whole lot of problems for the worried Hokage. If this was true, why was Danzo hailed as a hero? Why did you officers not report this to me? Asked Tobirama, some anger seeping into his voice. It was a time of war, Nadime. That victory bolstered the confidence of our troops and made them develop trust in each other. If they realized the truth, Naruto made us officers swear on our honor to keep his actions a secret and let Danzo take the credit for the victory. Most of the officers were afraid you would reprimand them for reporting against one of your prized students. They were wary of you, Tobirama-sama, said Tsukumo seriously. I cannot imagine Naruto to be much older than 11 or 12 when that battle took place, said Tobirama hesitantly. A true ninja protects from the shadows, he said. That victory united various clans within the village. It even strengthened our alliance with Azu. It brought our shinobi closer. Naruto understood that better than anyone. Even at that tender age, he thought like a Hokage. We entrusted everything to him and he carried out his duties perfectly without expecting anything in return. He's a fine shinobi, Lord Second. Have faith in him, insisted Tsukumo sincerely. Tobirama didn't say anything in response even as Tsukumo left to get them some tea. It was true that he had always been wary of the Uchiha because of his past. Maybe a part of him detested them for his brothers. Unlike Hashirama, he couldn't let go of the past so easily. His eyes widened. It was the exact same way Naruto thought, just as Tobirama's feelings for the Uchiha. Naruto detested Kumogakure for his brother. All this time he had never been able to accept Naruto truly. Whenever Tobirama looked at him, all he could see were those eyes and the B of the clan that Tobirama detested. A clan that his brothers, his parents, his friends, his comrades. He tolerated the Uchiha to respect Hashirama's wish but never had he trusted them. Maybe he was passing on those feelings towards Naruto as well. He had been so wary of the boy and his hatred that he failed to see the good in him. Maybe a part of Naruto's heart was consumed by hatred for the brother he lost, but unlike Madara who chose to betray his home in his pain, this boy was still protecting it from the shadows. He was a true shinobi. Maybe I was wrong, elder brother. Naruto stared at the sword in his hand quite attentively. He closed his eyes and allowed his senses to stop being active, allowing himself to feel the energy around him. It took a few moments, but soon enough he could feel the familiar chakra of people and animals near the training ground he was currently standing in. If he focused hard enough, he could also feel the energy fluctuating within the very nature itself. He had not forgotten the way in which his prized sword had greedily consumed his energy during the Battle of Osaka. In that moment, his rage had made him incapable of sensing the drain, but after the battle he had felt more fatigued than usual. The fact that he had vomited B was a serious issue, and one which he had kept hidden from everyone including Ino. For this was something he had to figure out himself first. Even now, he had to fight off that minor attempt by the weapon to latch onto his chakra network. It was acting like a parasite desperate to bond with its host, possibly even take over control with the passage of time. A power like this couldn't have been created without some sort of foul ritual, it was too unnatural to be created without that. There was only one way to measure the extent of the danger this weapon posed to him. Wordlessly, he created a clone of himself who nodded back at him, promising aid if things went out of control. Naruto allowed the last of his control to fade and let himself to be fully revealed to Muramasa. He was not surprised when the images of his deceased family flashed before his eyes. He watched them laugh with him. In this vision he seemed to be a Junin, and even his little brother was still alive, with both of them having become fine shinobi of Azu. He had known this would not be easy, and his strength was truly tested when the deaths played before his eyes one after another. He saw his father jumping over that explosive to save his comrades. He saw his mother stepping in between the sword aimed at him. He saw his little brother getting butchered in a shower of rocks. Then came his friends, his bonds and emotions that developed with them, followed by the gruesome deaths. When he didn't break despite the painful visions, they shifted directly towards Kirigakure. Muramasa must have felt the slight flicker in his heart as it bombarded him with flashing images of all those whom he held dear, all those whom he respected, and those he wanted to protect one after another. His eyes widened when he saw Kirigakure burn. Nearly half of the village was in flames, with entire streets littering with SB. It was as if an invasion had been staged that wiped out large chunk of the population. Anger surged through him when he saw a man dressed in dark robes S2 Junin that got in his way. This man's face was covered by a rippled mask that was red in color. It was he who was leading an army of shinobi in unknown armor and crest marks on their backs within the village. Naruto charged after them. It took some effort to make himself invisible to the enemy, and by the time he reached their location, he saw that they had entered the district where the Kaguya clan resided. His eyes widened when he saw dozens upon dozens of white-haired men and women lying in the streets, in the houses. There were so many everywhere. He had never truly cared about the Kaguyas, but this was terrible. The way the wounds were inflicted on the clansmen clearly showed they were made to suffer horribly before death gave them mercy. This was an intentional act, one meant to hurt. Even if the Kaguyas were selfish and bastards to an extent, to people like cattle. He grit his teeth when he saw that same masked man entering what looked like to be the hall where the clan usually gathered for meetings or celebrations. His shinobi army was right behind him as they marched dutifully. A handful Kaguya guards tried to stop them but were easily seen down by that masked man. He ran after them. He clenched his fists when he entered the hall and found each and every Kaguya clansman everywhere. It was AM. He heard fighting on the upper levels and charged ahead. His confidence was bolstered when the enemy didn't notice him even when he stood right beside them. While they looked human, the uniforms and armor were unlike anything he had ever seen before. Were they warriors of a new nation or one which was destroyed in the past? What the hell was Muramasa showing him? Steeling himself, he rushed into the only room that was left to be breached. The masked man tore it apart with a single clench of his right fist, exposing nearly 24 Kaguya children cowering behind tables and closets. Their terror turned to relief when they saw the masked man, but that feeling soon vanished when a sword appeared in that man's hand. Naruto had been through 2 wars and seen some of the most brutal actions humans could commit. The children panicked and screamed in terror. Many begged him for mercy. Many just started to cry hysterically as they were too young to bear the brutality happening in front of them. Naruto tried to move but found himself rooted to his spot by an invisible force. He couldn't close his eyes anymore to block the inhuman happening in front of him. Each second another child was struck down by the masked man, with their pleas for mercy having no effect on his heart. Even from the distance, Naruto could feel the hatred and anger in this shinobi. He was in deep agony, but that didn't stop him from killing each and every one of the Kaguya children. Naruto collapsed to his knees when the final child was killed. Part of him was horrified by what he had just seen, another was relieved that it was over. Lord Flash. He blinked and opened his eyes when he heard a whisper so sinister that it rattled his heart. Lord Flash. Naruto froze when that voice spoke again, and this time the masked man turned around to directly stare at him. Their eyes met, and it was in that moment when Naruto saw a pair of lifeless and cold red eyes burning through his very soul. His eyes. The man in front of him removed his mask only to reveal Naruto's own face staring back at him. Those red eyes had lost all innocence and mercy. That hardened face showed a man who had been through hell. That broken gaze showed he had lost all faith. Fulfill your destiny, Lord Flash. Hatred surged through him at that voice even as it said those heinous words. Instead of making him stronger, it started to weaken him, making him realize just what exactly the sword was trying to do. He looked at this version of him and knew this was not who he was or who he wanted to be. He had done several messed up things in the past as part of his mission or for his revenge, but it had only brought him more pain and suffering. He was not a hero like his father or little brother, but he also didn't want to be a monster. He was Naruto Namikaze of Kirigakure and ... He was Minato Namikaze of Uzushiogakure. The vision started to disappear as his will overpowered that of the sword. It protested viciously, trying to show him other images, but Naruto's firm belief in himself made all those attempts futile. When he opened his eyes fully, he saw his clone had disappeared due to the severe distress the original went through. His gaze landed upon the sword and was surprised to see it was burning up. But instead of a red aura that radiated hatred and anger, it was a blue-colored aura that reflected the peace which the sword master had made with himself. Naruto also didn't feel the sword trying to consume his life force, instead it was trying to aid him as much as possible by sharing the chakra it had stored with him. He nodded to himself as he understood something about his weapon, for it would work the way he wanted it to. He just had to be strong enough to always make it clear who was the master. The rays of the sun were slowly receding away from the village, allowing its famous mist to return once again. Human activity started to slow down, if only a little, as Naruto strolled towards his home. He had taken the liberty to travel across rooftops, for the people would never let him go if he walked among them. It would seem most of the village was enamored by their new general, and wanted to see what he was really like in ordinary life. For them, he was a mystery. Dismissing those thoughts, he increased his speed but stopped when he saw a familiar face sitting in the training ground near his home. He narrowed his eyes when he saw 4 hunter ninjas surrounding the shinobi. Grabbing a kunai from his pouch, he threw it straight forward in the direction of the training ground. Mei had been in the midst of a heated argument with 4 hunter ninjas when they were all stopped by a bright yellow flash happened in front of them. When their vision finally cleared, Mei was surprised to see a familiar blonde-haired man with a stark white haori standing in front of her. Lord Seventh, she whispered. He was holding that kunai which she had barely seen flying towards them before that flash had happened. Apparently, the hunters knew this man too. Scatter, ordered one of the hunters. Wordlessly, all of the hunters deserted the area in the blink of an eye, drawing a smirk from the tall man currently standing in front of Mei. Bullies are really annoying, aren't they? He asked with a smile, as he offered her his hand. You shouldn't have intervened. I was about to handle them, she answered honestly, but didn't refuse his hand as he pulled her to her feet. Sorry, I thought, never mind, he apologized sheepishly, as he scratched the back of his head. Mei couldn't help but notice that the real Naruto was quite clumsy and sheepish. There was no doubt he was extremely powerful, he had proved that too many times, but just standing beside him gave her a sense of peace she had only experienced with her family. Maybe it was because he accepted her even though she was a Jinchuriki. People might start hating you, if you are seen to be taking my side or even being around me, Lord Seventh, she cautioned him, if only for his well-being. Then that's their problem, he answered flatly, making her blink in surprise at his honesty. We only live once, so it's better to live on our terms as much as we can. She couldn't help but smile at that simple but true philosophy. You were trying to meditate in order to better control your powers, weren't you? He asked sharply. She had to again remind herself that behind that easygoing man was a fine shinobi. One that she respected and admired. Yes, she admitted. It's scary when we have to battle our own self. It's one of the toughest battles one can ever fight, he whispered, and from the way he said it portrayed he had been through something like that. Lord Seventh, please call me Naruto when we are not on mission. It's embarrassing enough as it is, he requested with a smile, making her smile as well. Well then, Naruto. I wanted to thank you for allowing me to stay in the 501st, I got the conscription letter today, said Mei with large smile, but he just shrugged. You're a fine shinobi, Mei. I need people like you if we are to win this war, admitted Naruto honestly. Still, I wanted you to know that I am grateful for your faith in me, which is why I want to make myself stronger. I couldn't help you much during the last battle, but this time, She whispered hopefully, and was satisfied when he nodded respectfully at her resolve. He seemed to hesitate for a few moments before he made up his mind and looked at her. I'm going on a mission soon, he said, as he rummaged through his pockets only to produce a sealing tag before her. Somehow, May had a feeling that this was not an ordinary mission judging from the grim expression in the man's eyes. Her doubts were proven true when he offered her that sealing tag. I may not return. It was a reality every shinobi had to live with, including May herself. Still, the thought of losing the man standing before her did not sit well, even troubled her heart to some extent. Focus upon your meditation and place this seal upon your body. If the beast tries to take control, this will stop it, promised Naruto sincerely. Why do you go so far for me, Lord Seventh? Asked May in a whisper, as she respectfully accepted the seal. He smiled as he looked into her eyes. You know why. Her eyes became moist as she realized he understood and respected her devotion to the village. He was not afraid of her or the beast within her, besides from her father, he was the only one who had faith in her. Your path may not have been easy, but you have a strength most people don't possess. Someday the people of this village will truly come to recognize and respect the shinobi that you are. Most importantly, you are not alone. May, said Naruto sincerely with a smile. He gave her a parting nod even as a lone tear slipped from her eyes. Thank you, Naruto, said May happily, even as a small blush crept up on her cheeks. The future must stay bright. I leave the village to you, May. He was gone even as he whispered those words to her. Watching him go away ignited a tiny spark of worry inside of May. Just what was this mission that he was going on? She didn't know much, but this man was the only one aside from her family who treated her like a human being, who respected her as a shinobi and had faith in her. It would break her heart if something were to happen to him. She flinched when she closed her eyes for a second only to see the same man being buried in a coffin. No, she couldn't let that happen. You are the future of this village, Lord Seventh. We cannot lose you, she thought with determination. She clenched her fist and looked in the direction of the Mizukage's office, knowing what she had to do to keep that future safe. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.